I've got 20 minutes with everyone to try to dump some fun tips and tricks on how to tell better stories. We all have to tell stories. Everybody's a storyteller in here. You know, if you think about it, the single human common denominator is that we all tell stories. I mean, if there's one thing that every human being has always done and will always do, is we all create, share, and protect stories. And hopefully you all realize that someday that's all that's left of you, too. And trust me, people tell stories about you with or without your help, which is why you kind of need to be deliberate about what you want those stories to be. All right, don't let that happen by accident. Like, know what you want the story to be. I mean, what do you want your story to be? So, you know, as the historian at P&G, one of the things I do is when people are retiring, I try to capture their institutional knowledge, and I ask them some questions and key learnings. And I always start off with this first question, and think about how you would answer this. If all you're allowed is to leave one story behind for future generations to learn and be inspired from, what story would you tell me? If all you had was one story, what would that be? It's tough. It's a tough question, by the way. Think about that, though. It's a good question. Because then you know kind of what you want that to be. So my title, as Marnie said, was Corporate Storyteller and Company Historian. And I know that sounds totally made up. And it kind of is. They made it up for me, and I'm very proud of that, and I love my job. I will tell you that is not what I was hired to do. I'm an industrial designer by background, so I was the person for the first half of my career. I would sketch out what, like, the Swiffer Wet Jet looks like and Tide bottles and stuff like that. That's basically what I did. And, but big movie buff. Where's my movie buffs? Three of us? Nice, yeah. Well, there's these great things out there called movies. You should all check them out. They're fantastic, yeah. And there's this thing called Netflix. It's also got a lot of great stuff on. You should totally see it. But one thing I love about movies is at some point every movie maker considers the notion that perhaps they should try to write one. And so I sat down, started writing one, and I learned something very quickly, which is no matter how many movies you watch, it actually doesn't help you write one. Okay, those are completely unrelated skills that have nothing to do with each other at all. And my screenplay was absolutely awful, and I realized I hadn't put in what Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers calls the 10,000 hours, which hopefully some of you are familiar with. Basically, it's practice. If you don't practice something, you never get good at anything. I mean, how often do you practice writing dialogue and emotional scenes that, you know, mass audiences can feel? It's tough. It's tough to do. So, fortunately, I have a brother who lives in Los Angeles, and I started spending my weekends in LA. So, Cincinnati, P&G during the week, flying out to LA for screenwriting classes on weekends, taking the red eye that I believe still exists from LA to Cincinnati on Sundays, which I was much younger then and could do that. That would play havoc with me now today. But did that for a long time, took classes in Chicago, took classes in New York, really dug into improv and the psychology of story and mythology and cultural stories and things like that. And one day basically realized every single thing I was learning I could apply back at P&G. And I worked in our Pampers brand at the time. And I went to my boss and I said, I think I figured out how we can use what works in Star Wars to solve innovation problems. And trust me when I say you have to have the right boss when you say that, okay? And I did. I had the right boss. She was fantastic. She said, well, Shane, I have no idea what you really mean by that, but I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. So give it a go and see what happens. And I started sharing it, and, you know, with different teams from R&D to finance to legal to marketing to communications to whatever. And in the beginning, it was like 10% of my job, then it became 20, then 50, and for the last 15 years, actually, it's been 100% of what I do, and P&G's really cool, and that since I developed it externally, as long as I take vacation, I can share it externally. So I present at Walt Disney and teach classes there, and I've presented at big companies like Nike, and I present at schools, and I present to companies like all of yours, because you all have great stories to tell. I mean, how would you sum up the story of your company? You know, if someone stopped you and said, yeah, you know, I'm not familiar, so tell me, what's your company's story? You know, do you tell the origin story? Do you tell how, you know, what you do today? Do you tell what your vision is? Do you tell what, you know, your most successful product or service is? I mean, what do you tell? Because you probably only have time to tell one. I mean, if any of you have ever heard the term elevator speech, what is your elevator speech? And, you know, depending upon the size of the building, you know, give or take, you've got maybe, you know, 20 seconds, 30 tops. So, you know, what would you say? What would you say? Real quick, where is the clicker? Is it, yeah, got it. Thank you. So I'm just going to take you through a few tips and tricks to think about as you all work on your stories, okay, and any story that you have to tell. So first of all, you can learn a ton from Hollywood, because you know an industry that all they do is stories? It's this one. Okay, this is all they do. And it's tough. I mean, how many bad ones are there out there, you know? Every day they launch. I mean, they're all over, you know, it's tough. And think about that, though. Do you know how much money they put into those ones that totally bomb and stuff? It's tough to come up with a story that can stand the test of time, that is memorable and inspiring and rewatchable. I mean, who has seen Shawshank, right? It's on like every Saturday. I mean, literally, right? And think about this, who rewatches it, right? I mean, I've seen it multiple times. You know the end, you know he gets out, why do you rewatch it? I still rewatch Seinfeld. Seinfeld hasn't had a new episode since 1998. The Office, Breaking Bad, Yellowstone, Ozarks. There's Star Wars. I've seen it a lot. You know, Pixar movies, Toy Story. I mean, how many, for those with kids, how many times you see the Pixar movies over and over and over again, right? Yeah. Rewatchable. I mean, have you ever given a presentation and then someone gets done and they're like, you know, that was really good. Can I get a copy of your deck? I would love to share that with some folks. Or, you know, would you? Do you know how impactful that is? I mean, you Shawshanked them because they want to rewatch it. They know the end. And they want to hear it or watch it or read it again. That is huge. Did you take the time to ask them? I'm just curious, you know, why did you like that presentation? You know, what was your favorite part? What was your favorite part? You know, why do you want a copy of it? I'm just curious. You know, I mean, do that. If you didn't, you missed a huge opportunity. I know you've all been there before too. I mean, understand what is driving the power of your stories. And you can do that by really studying Hollywood. And if anybody wants a book list of some great books that anyone who tells stories should have, I'll give my email at the end. Email me, I'll send you a nice list to start with. But you got to dig into that industry. But now you're looking at it through the lens of what will help me tell the kinds of stories that I need to tell. Internal, external, whatever, doesn't matter. You're all filmmakers, directors, and writers at the end of the day. Because think about what their job is in Hollywood. Their job is to create things that people want to watch, that inform, inspire, excite, and are rewatchable. Does not all your companies have to create stuff that fills that? Of course you do. So then you might as well use some of the tips and tricks that they use. You can learn a lot by studying Spielberg, trust me. He knows what he's doing. So let's talk about a couple of those. So the first principle that I want to stress, which is really the foundational building block of storytelling, is something that is called empathy. Hopefully you've heard of that term. Oh, yep, I see I'm being waved over here. Do not get in front of the speakers. Good call. Empathy is seeing with the eyes of another and being able to hear with the ears of another and, you know, feel with the heart of another. Empathy is the key to what makes any story work, because if I can't empathize with the audience, the story is over. If I can't relate to that audience, the story is over. And you'd be shocked how great writers can create empathy. Where's my Breaking Bad fans in here? Sopranos? Yeah. Okay, and keep in mind, for you to follow that for the years that you did meant that at some level you had empathy for these characters. And they're such good people. Yeah. You'd be shocked how often we have empathy for the villain sometimes. The whole play Wicked is based off of that. So empathy is so critical. It's literally the secret to Hollywood. It's why you can have empathy for a rat or a robot. I love Ratatouille. It's one of my favorite Pixar films, one of my absolute favorite Pixar films. And the way that often they will create empathy with characters, whether it's a group of plastic toys that come to life when a kid leaves the room or a fish or whatever the case may be, is by thinking about a human truth that everyone can relate to. So ask yourself, what is the film Ratatouille truly about? What is it truly about that everyone in this room can relate to? We've all dealt with it. It's a lesson that we would tell our kids. It's a lesson that hopefully our parents told us. And it's not about cooking. It's not about cooking, okay? What is the bigger lesson of Ratatouille? Live your dreams. Follow your dreams. Do what you want to do in life. And when you do that, it can be tough. People may say that you can't do it. You may doubt yourself doing it. There can be all of those. Everyone in here can relate to that idea. That's what makes it work. And that's why you can have empathy for a rat. Or a robot that's stuck on a planet by himself. What does Wall-E want that we all understand and we know is important? What's he want? Connection. Love and connection. He wants to hold someone's hand. He watches Hello, Dolly over and over and over again just to watch that scene of holding hands. How important is relationships and connection to all of us? That's why it works. Trust me, Pixar knows what they're doing. They know what they're doing, and that's why, you know, most of their movies have made over $1 billion, too. So you can learn a lot from that. You've got to make your audience care. If you don't make the audience care, they won't. There's too many people yelling stories at us all day, every day. I mean, right now, you're getting probably emails, you're getting texts, you're getting social media hits, you're thinking about where you're going to go afterwards. It's tough. It's tough for attention. How many seconds do we get before we can hit skip ad? 5 seconds. Yeah, 5, yeah. And how many of you, after the 5, let it keep running? Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, and all of you advertise too, right? In your companies? Yeah, so you don't think anyone's doing that to your stuff too, huh? I mean, you're contributing to behavior. And it's not that we don't care, it's that we're being bombarded with stories everywhere, and so we have to be choiceful. We have to be choiceful. You know, we decide, is that story for me? Is it not for me? And I make that choice. So that is why the power of the story becomes ever so important, because if you don't hook people quick, you'll lose them. You'll lose them. There's too many other stories out there, and there's a lot of great ones out there too. So I'm going to give you 2 story tools to think about and practice, okay? And some of you will absolutely probably already know these and are fantastic at it. Anyone can be good at these 2 stories tools I'm about to share with you. It's all practice. It's all practice, okay? So the first is theme. Now, theme is what we just discussed with Ratatouille. The theme for Ratatouille is follow your dreams. That is what's called a theme. A theme is a controlling idea. So whenever you're getting ready to present to a team, to a group, to a group like this, ask yourself, what is the main takeaway of my talk? That is your theme. A theme should guide what scenes you keep and what scenes you cut. Trust me when I tell you that every one of your favorite movies, the editor always asks for a theme because the theme helps them decide what to keep and what to cut. So, for example, Beauty and the Beast, one of my favorite Disney films, the whole theme of the entire film is don't judge a book by its cover. Why do you think Belle's always reading books? Why did the Beast give her a library? How did the Beast become a beast? Does anyone remember? What did the prince do in the beginning? Remember, he shunned that old woman that showed up because of how she looked. And then he was cursed. And the candelabra and the clock are actually people. And her dad is a genius, but the town thinks he's crazy. The whole thing is don't judge a book by its cover. I've literally shared at elementary schools, and I'll ask kids, what is the meaning of Beauty and the Beast? And they will say those words verbatim. And keep in mind, those words are never in the film. I mean, how many times did the genie tell Aladdin, be yourself? He even turned into a bee at one point to go, be yourself, remember? I mean, literally. So when you know what that key takeaway idea is, it helps you decide what to keep and what to cut. When you present a TED, one of the first things they ask you is, what is your controlling idea and your theme? And if you're going to show any slides, they want to know how every single slide you show is going to build to the audience understanding that idea and that principle. Never put in things that actually don't drive the story to the conclusion that you're going to. It's a distraction. So I'll share with you the theme I had for my talk at TED was about how small things can have a big impact. It was actually about the power of short stories, much like Marnie said. And I told a few different stories about how small things can have a big impact. And that's a lesson we all know. We've all learned that lesson before, right? That small things can have a big impact. Of course it can. So I'll tell you my story that brings it to life. And it's all about why I started playing guitar, which is because of a band called Poison, okay? Now, hopefully there's some hair metal fans in here, please. Yeah, all right, good, all right, good. There's always a few. Yeah, that's good. And you can admit it, it's okay, all right? So anyway, I loved Poison. I loved Skid Row and Motley Crue and Warrant and Trickster and Scorpions, and I loved them all. And I remember one Saturday morning, I got up and I was watching this thing called MTV, okay? And on this thing, it was videos all day long, okay? And I saw a video for a song. And when I saw this video, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life, okay? Because I knew that I wanted to be a rock and roll guitarist, and I wanted the leather pants, and I wanted the big hair, and I wanted the cool guitars, and I wanted to be up on the stage, and I wanted pyrotechnics, and I wanted all of that, and I wanted to be this guy real bad, okay? And this is CeCe DeVille, he's the guitarist for Poison, and I begged my mom for a guitar. I said, please, I gotta have a guitar. I gotta have a guitar, okay? So we went to a pawn shop, and I got a $52 guitar, okay? It didn't matter what this thing cost. It was the most precious thing I'd ever owned, okay? And I love this guitar, and I love learning all my favorite songs, and there's me in my first band in the middle with my Poison shirt and my perfectly done Def Leppard jeans, by the way. But anyway, and we were absolutely awful, okay? But oh, it was so much fun, loved it, absolutely loved it. And music became the center point of creativity for me, and music just dictated so much of how I thought about creativity. Now, what I didn't realize was there was someone watching me this whole time, and it was my little brother. Do you know how influential siblings can be on each other? Very much. And my brother saw how much fun I was having, and guess what my little brother wanted to do? He wanted to play guitar. And then my little brother got a guitar, and that's him. I'm on the far left, and he's standing next to me. And then when I was at The Ohio State University, he would drive up and play at the band I had there, and we played together. And remember I told you when I was studying film, I stayed with my brother in L.A.? Okay, well, that's the brother. Do you want to know why he's in L.A.? Because he pursued a career in music and worked at sound studios. So then I came to P&G, and I've been at P&G for 25 years, and for 22 of those 25, I've been at bands at P&G, rock bands at P&G. Okay? Shameless plug, we're playing at JD Legends tomorrow night from 9 to 12, but just wanted to throw that out. But anyway, been in bands 22 of those 25 years. And I have 3 boys that are 22, 21, and 20. Okay? And all 3 of my boys have grown up watching their dad play guitar and play in these bands. They would come to the gigs when they could, and of course they could hear me practicing, and they saw how much fun Dad was having. Guess what all 3 of my boys wanted to do? Yes, they all wanted to learn how to play guitar. And I taught all 3 of my boys how to play guitar. And what I'm really proud to say is that my middle son plays in the band with me. And you know, I remember being up on stage at one point and looking over and seeing him there and thinking to myself, isn't it amazing what a 3-minute music video can do? It not only gave me a lifelong hobby and passion, but the cherished moments of playing with my brother, my kids, and my son. And that's how I know that small things can have a big impact. So I did something really important there, which is there's an old saying when you tell stories, tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them. I told you I was going to talk about how small things can have a big impact. I then told you the story, and then I ended with, and that's how I learned that small things can have a big impact. Repeat is important when you tell your story, especially the thematic. Which is why if you ever get done with the presentation and your last slide has like 12 things on it, I'd be careful, okay? That's too many themes, sorry. Yeah, no one's going to remember all that, sorry, unless you're taking really detailed notes. Watch TED Talks and you'll see they have one main idea every time. Every time. And trust me, it works. It works. So that's a theme. Now, once you have a theme, and by the way, notice I didn't talk about the practice. I didn't talk about my guitar teachers. I didn't talk about the gigs that went wrong, nothing like that. That's a different story. That's the story about practice pays off. That's about nothing worthwhile is easy. If I change the theme, I can take any story and change to different angles in it. I can take the same story and tell it 3, 5, 10 different ways potentially, depending upon how many themes were represented. I would never tell them all at the same time, though. Dilutes it. Loses its power. So the last tool I want to give you is a pitch. And a pitch is, if you've ever watched Shark Tank, it's that first minute they're given, basically. You know, Barbara Corcoran on Shark Tank will say that usually within the first minute to 2, they know we're either in or we're out. So you've got to be really good at summing up your idea, summing up your story in a way that leaves people wanting more. That's how you know your pitch is good. When you give the pitch, they're like, really? So how do you do that? Or, so how does this part work? And not questions of confusion, questions of curiosity. And that is good pitch writing. Now, at Disney, for example, they actually usually challenge a lot of their Imagineers to sum up a new ride idea in 1 sentence. You're allowed 1 sentence to sum up your idea. How would you sum up your business in 1 sentence? And so much so that people not only want to hear more, but could guess what it is. In 1 sentence. It's worth trying, by the way. It's worth trying. But as David Belasco, who wrote Madam Butterfly, once said, if you can't write your idea on the back of my calling card, you don't have a clear idea. Try that exercise, by the way. Take your business card sometime, turn it over, and write down 1 sentence that you would give to someone in the hopes that they will call you back because of what you wrote. With just the room on the back of your business card. It's harder than you think. Trust me, it's harder than you think. So, let's do a quick quiz. Yell them out when you know them. I'm going to give you 3 movie pitches and 3 product pitches, and I guarantee that you'll get these. You'll get them. So, yell it out when you know it. What's this movie? What if a kid went back in time and interfered with his parents' relationship? Hey, Back to the Future. Hey, look at it. Bam, bam. You got that in like seconds. That's fantastic. Okay, how about what if you could go to a zoo today and see real dinosaurs? Yeah, and it's the same pitch for all 5. Okay, they didn't even change it. It's the same pitch for all of them. All right, it's literally the same. What if a child's toys came to life when he left the room? And if I said it's a scary movie, Yeah, Chucky, there we go. Okay, good job. Yes, yeah, you got it. Nice work, nice work. Okay, now let's do 3 products. Let's do 3 products. What if you had 1,000 songs in your pocket? The iPod. Steve Jobs literally said this to kick off that developers conference. You know, and sometimes I'll get young folks that'll say Spotify and stuff. I'm like, no, you got to understand. We had this thing called the Walkman, okay? And the Walkman held 9 songs, okay? And if you wanted to carry your tapes with you, you had this huge suitcase, basically, to take them with you. And that was still only a couple hundred songs, let alone 1,000, okay? Oh my gosh, I mean, 1,000 songs in your pocket. And you remember how that reinvented music in the category. So simple of a pitch, though. What if your phone could instantly set up and pay for a ride to anywhere? There you go. So whenever you write a pitch, by the way, what you want to focus on is what's called the POD, the point of difference, which is the thing that truly separates you in that particular industry. It's not the phone that separates Uber, it's that the phone can set up and pay at the same time. That's the POD. It's not that, you know, the 1,000 songs, quite frankly, it's that it's 1,000 songs in a pocket. That's what is the POD. And then this last one, what if you could book a room with locals instead of with hotels? There you go. Now, what sentence would you say about your company that people would guess at the same speed that you just did for the iPod, for Uber, and for Airbnb? You did that in seconds. And there's no taglines in there. There's no brand name, so you can't say your tagline. You can't say your brand name. What would you say that they would guess not only, and I'm just even to get them in the right industry, let alone you and not your competition? Try that. You can crack it. I'm telling you, you can. And if you can, that will truly show you what is the POD of your particular industry, company, or brand. Then you'll know what to talk about and what to focus on. So, create empathy with your audience. Got to know your audience. And remember, I'll give you a secret from Hollywood. Every director loves their story. That doesn't mean audiences and Rotten Tomatoes do. And what do you think matters the most at the end? That the director loves it or that the audiences do? Yeah. So I don't care if you like your story. You have to care that I do. I representing the audience. Therefore, you better know what the audience is looking for. Got to create focus with a theme. Know what you want the key takeaway. Ask yourself for your brand or business, even if you have different pillars of industries or businesses or brands or benefits, ask yourself what is the key takeaway of each of those. If your audience remembered one thing from what you do, what do you hope that one thing is? That's probably your theme. Use that to guide the larger part of your narrative. And then pitch it. Pitches are great hooks. You know what starts off a great presentation? Standing up and saying a what-if pitch. Hi, my name is Meeker. What if I told you all that very soon you'll be able to have 1,000 songs in your pocket? I mean, that doesn't mean much today, but you get the idea. Like that would have sounded huge back in 2001. They're great intros, a what-if pitch. So, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. It's a great quote from Einstein, something always to remember. If it takes you pages to explain what it is you're working on, what you do, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. There's another old saying in Hollywood, if you can't get me excited in 50 words, please don't make it 50,000. That goes triple for PowerPoint decks, by the way. If you can't get me excited in 5 slides, please don't make it 50, right? Adding more content does not equal a better story. So, some things to keep in mind for all the storytellers in this room and all the stories that you have to tell. And here is my email, absolutely at your service. Anytime you have a question, you want to create a pitch and just get some quick feedback on it, I'd love to do it. I'd love to. You want to talk movie reviews, whatever. You send me an email. I would be happy to connect anytime. Let me know. Thank you so much for having me. Tell your stories because you've got them. And hopefully I'll get to talk to folks later. So, yeah.